Think about what would happen if it's the year 2026. In the dead of night, thousands of Chinese warships and aircraft cut across the Taiwan Strait. Explosions light up the skies over Taipei. Millions of lives hang in the balance as the world holds its breath. The global economy trembles, and the possibility of World War III looms over humanity. But what if this terrifying scenario actually happened? What if China invaded Taiwan? In our real world, Taiwan is a small island nation off the coast of China, home to over 23 million people. Since 1949, when the Chinese Civil War ended, Taiwan has operated as a self-governing democracy. But China still claims Taiwan as part of its territory, vowing that reunification must one day happen. By diplomacy if possible, by force if necessary. Meanwhile, the United States and its allies have quietly promised to defend Taiwan, though the details remain deliberately vague. Taiwan itself is no ordinary country. It produces over 60% of the world's semiconductors, the tiny chips that power everything from smartphones to fighter jets. In reality, Taiwan is a fragile flashpoint. If China were ever to invade, the consequences would shake not just Asia, but the entire planet. Now imagine this. It's early morning. China launches a massive military campaign across the Taiwan Strait. Hypersonic missiles slam into air defense systems, while cyber attacks cripple Taiwan's communications. Within hours, Chinese paratroopers descend near key cities. The world watches in shock as the unthinkable begins. This is the moment history diverges. What happens next? Stage 1 is immediate consequences. The first 24 hours would be chaos. Taiwan's air force scrambles to resist, but they are vastly outnumbered. Chinese warships encircle the island in a full naval blockade, cutting off food, fuel, and medicine. Panic spreads in the streets of Taipei as civilians rush for shelter. The internet and power grids collapse under relentless cyber warfare. Airports are shut down. For ordinary families, life changes instantly. Phones stop working, ATMs run dry, and survival becomes the only priority. Meanwhile, the United States, Japan, and South Korea face a terrifying decision. Should they intervene immediately, or risk global war by standing back? But the invasion is only the beginning. Now, stage 2 is regional impact. Within days, Asia is on fire. Japan scrambles fighter jets and deploys warships, knowing that if Taiwan falls, it could be next. South Korea fears that North Korea, emboldened by the chaos, might launch its own strikes. The Philippines and Vietnam rush to fortify their coastlines. The United States begins moving aircraft carriers into the Pacific, while thousands of troops are placed on high alert. Skirmishes break out in the South China Sea as American and Chinese ships shadow each other. Trade routes are paralyzed. The Taiwan Strait, normally carrying nearly half of the world's shipping traffic, becomes a war zone. Oil tankers reroute, causing energy prices to skyrocket worldwide. But the regional crisis is only the start, because the economic shock spreads everywhere. And now, stage 3, the global impact now. Picture this. Within just weeks, the global economy crashes. Semiconductor factories in Taiwan, the lifeblood of modern technology, are either destroyed or seized by China. Suddenly, smartphones, laptops, cars, medical devices, everything begins to run short. Factories from Detroit to Berlin grind to a halt. Stock markets plunge. Inflation explodes. Millions lose jobs. In Europe, already weakened by energy crises, panic sets in. In Africa and South America, food imports become scarce. Meanwhile, diplomacy collapses. The United Nations is paralyzed, unable to act. NATO debates direct involvement. Russia, smelling opportunity, increases pressure on Eastern Europe. The Middle East braces for oil price chaos. And behind all of this, the nuclear shadow looms. Could a clash between China and the US spiral into all-out war? But the longer the war drags on, the more devastating the consequences become. The last stage, long-term future. Now imagine the world decades after China's invasion of Taiwan. If China succeeds, it cements its position as the dominant power in Asia. The US reputation as global protector collapses, and nations once allied with Washington drift toward Beijing. A new Chinese-led world order rises, controlling not just trade routes, but also the future of technology. On the other hand, if the invasion fails, China faces disaster. Economic sanctions cripple its economy, domestic unrest spreads, and its global ambitions collapse for a generation. Taiwan, though battered, emerges as a symbol of resistance, like Britain during World War II. But there's an even darker timeline. If the war escalates into direct conflict between nuclear powers, the 21st century could be remembered not for progress, but for destruction. Cities like Los Angeles, Shanghai, or Tokyo could vanish in fireballs. Humanity itself might teeter on the edge of survival. The truth is, no matter which path this alternate history takes, the world we know would never be the same again. And yet, this is only one possible future. Would countries truly risk nuclear war for Taiwan? Would China gamble its rise on a single invasion? Or would diplomacy somehow pull the world back from the brink? These are the questions that keep world leaders awake at night. So, what if China invaded Taiwan? The answer is chilling. A single island, smaller than Florida, could decide the fate of global power, technology, and even human survival. Perhaps the scariest part is this. It may not just be a what if. It may be the crisis of our lifetime. So the real question is, if that day comes, will the world stand united to prevent catastrophe? Or will history repeat the tragedies of the past on an even greater scale?